Welcome to another episode of The
Grow Show.
with
Glenn and Keisha.
Keisha and Glenn. And so we're here today just to talk on a subject that is not so open for us to talk about as people, especially living in the Bahamas. And so I'm going to allow Keisha to just get the juices going, and we going to share some information with you and some of our experiences, and then take it from
I
there.
like how you just say you're going to allow Keisha.
Yeah, I'll allow you.
Pass it.
Yeah, I'm passing the baton to you. Here it is.
So we know that this year's theme is what?
What is this here?
You tell me.
We are growing
Boldly.
Boldly.
Right? So it's right on our shirts.
fine.
And one of the bold ways to grow is seeking help in a bold way. And for some people, therapy may not be a bold step, but for many people, especially in our culture, it is a bold step. And so we wanted to talk about this last season. We have talked about this a lot of times on our walks. Why are you looking at me like that?
Did you just say therapy?
Yes.
Wow.
We've talked about this a lot of times on our walks. We've shared this in settings. And I think it's one of those topics that, again, I'm going to say locally, is still a stigma. But if we are talking this year about growing boldly, sometimes that requires seeking help
Yes.
boldly.
Boldly, yes.
And I believe therapy is one of those topics that it takes a brave decision to go and find help, and also a brave decision to discuss it.
Yeah.
And so that's what our topic is about today.
Whoa.
Why
And
whoa?
So in order for you to actually seek help or seek therapy, you have to be admitting that something is wrong, and
Yeah.
we don't like to think that something is wrong.
And that's
is
a
it that
brave-
something is wrong?
And that's a brave step right now, because last episode we talked about, what boldly was, and
Yeah.
B was brave.
Yeah.
So the brave step, I think a part of it is being brave enough to admit. I think we talked about, that was a part of what Apostle talked about in church this past week, just admitting to yourself, telling yourself the truth that, hey, listen, this is a problem, or I'm having a problem that I cannot seem to solve. Or I keep knocking myself up against this brick every single time, every single year. There has to be potentially something there. Let me be brave enough to find help and to admit it.
Well, you talk about recognizing a problem. I may not recognize that there's a problem. In other words, it could keep coming up over and over, but I don't see it as a problem.
Yeah.
I don't see me as being the problem.
Don't see, that's the problem there.
And that's it. But then I don't see that. And so what therapy does, it helps you to look at you and look at the circumstances and the situation and some of your past experiences, your family background, your how you grow up, and to figure out what are some of the things that you might be taking over into your adult life, into your relationship, that you may not even have seen it as a problem, but now it actually is causing a problem.
I love that thought about sometimes we don't see it as a problem. And I agree. It takes a level of awareness. But what I think people do see is they are constantly stuck, or they feel stuck. They feel like they can't move in this particular area, or they find themselves going in circles. Like they're taking a step forward and then 5 steps back, and taking a step forward and 5 steps back. All of these behaviors or signals are potentially something maybe blocking you. There's some limiting factor there. There's something that potentially needs you to take that bold step of going to someone and say, hey, look, I'm having this problem.
Well, I
Help me
didn't
see
take a
differently.
bold step. You volunteered me to counseling.
But let's see. Okay, you jump right in there. So let me tell you how it started. Like that was the last time. Remember the first time? I think it was 2020. Now a lot of people had problems 2020 because we was living in the house and couldn't move. That was. But I remember it was around November when we had this major argument. I remember what the argument was about.
And
but
usually it was something silly.
Yeah, as usual.
Yeah. And she always the one start that.
That's not true. That's not true. So we had this argument, and I remember you saying something along the lines of, don't try to fix me, fix yourself.
That's
That's Glenn's
my
classic
mantra.
line, okay?
Don't try to fix me.
yourself.
Fix you. Let me fix me.
And for some reason that evening, it it clicked, right? And this was an argument, or this was what we call, I guess we talked about it, those, what's the term that you use? Recurring, perpetual problems.
Yeah.
It was one of those perpetual problems in our relationship where it just kept coming up. And I got to a point, I'm like, man, I'm tired of this, because I'm growth oriented. So when I find that I knock up against something enough times, I am going to be like, okay, how do I fix this? How do I grow? And that's when I reached out to a therapist we both know. And
plug in for Harrison Thompson.
Good Bahamian
local
therapist.
Very experienced.
And that was that first. I didn't bring you in because again it was me fixing me.
Yeah.
According to him, he didn't need to be fixed. He had no awareness of his problems.
I didn't think I didn't need to be fixed. I didn't need you to fix me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's
I needed
fair.
you to work on you while I work on me.
So I had a first call with him, and I will tell you, in that one, I think it was 60 minutes. 60 minutes. I got such a revelation. Like I was sharing what the problem is. Of course, you go to the therapist to talk with your husband, to complain to your husband, but I got such a revelation that one call changed so much things in me, which I believe began the healing process, because there was a level of awareness that took me all the way back to childhood, ways that I was triggered, based on some of the things that he was doing, that again took me back to childhood. And I didn't realize it at the moment. Why are you laughing?
What aspect of childhood?
Why? What you talking about?
What about your childhood that took you back, that I triggered?
See now you're taking me all the way back. So it had to do with, this was 4 years ago now,
Yeah.
but it had to do with, I felt as if you don't go there. There's a whole other conversation.
No, let's go there. We got to keep it real.
I felt so. Glenn is very. How should I call you? He calls things out. He is not someone who is going to see something and just brush it off and leave it alone. I'm generally that person. He will call it out, and so whenever he did that, I felt as if. And it could have been something very simple. It could have been something very needed or necessary or relevant. It had nothing to do with him, but I perceived it or interpreted it as an attack. And of course, because I felt as if growing up, there were so many little things in my childhood that I felt like it was just such a nitpicking act. And so I kind of connected the two. And so whenever he came to me, it was like, why are you picking on me? That kind of dynamic. I didn't connect the two until having that conversation with Harrison. And from there, of course, it took a while to really change, but at least I had that awareness that, wow, it ain't really Glenn. I mean, Glenn is a problem from time to time.
Sometimes.
But, and sometimes it is really him, but generally it had a lot to do with me. And so, but that came from one call, one level of awareness. And then, of course, fast forward 4 years, we had this major argument.
Big breakdown over what?
You want to say?
No, over what? What this breakdown was over? No,
you say.
I mean, days of not speaking over
You
what?
tell us. You tell us.
The remote control, like my remote control. Say that, his remote control.
It was a big problem. And it really wasn't the remote. The remote was the trigger.
Yeah.
And that led us to really just not talking, being angry, etc. And that led me to reaching back out to Harrison. And this time, I'm like, look, it ain't me. It ain't just me, okay? It's Glenn. So after I had this conversation with Harrison, I'm like, Harrison, I need you to talk to Glenn. You know, it's two sides to this coin. And now you say I signed you up. I asked you.
No, you volunteered me. You sent me to therapy. But the good thing about that aspect of it, my natural instinct would have been, no, don't sign me up for no therapy. You're the one who needs to go and do your therapy. I don't need you to sign me up. But I didn't take that stance. Mm-hmm. I thought about it. I said, you know what? Let me go and see what I can benefit from it and how I could grow.
Yeah.
You know, what I could do, what I could learn from it. And I went in with the open mind that I am going to do this thing to work on me, not to do anything or complain. In fact, my first session, I didn't talk about you.
I don't even know what happened.
You didn't know what happened.
He's never even told me.
The first session, I talked about me, who I am, my truths. I talk about my temperament. I talk about all the good stuff and all the bad stuff that I'm not afraid to own about me. And the therapist was like, wow, I've never seen that. Like, you just actually, people don't usually say all of that. Because I'm a person, I'm going to own my truth and I'm going to say it. But owning your truth and saying it don't mean you always right or you always know every scenario. And so...
So how was it for you? What did you learn? What were the lessons in it for you? And how did that tie to bold growth?
How it tied to bold growth? Like I said, I went in with an open mind first because my stance would have been, no, don't sign me up for no therapy. You go to therapy. You need to be fixed. All right? But I took a different stance and I was like, no, I want to go in with an open mind to see what it is that I could learn. And just by going and being open, answering the questions very truthfully, he was able to bring some things out about the difference between how women perceive and react to different scenario versus men. And I was being a male chauvinist in some things. And in some, you're in it for the first time, right? And in some things, I needed to adjust the way how I either react or deal with you. And it's not that you are right, I just need to make an adjustment in dealing. Right? And so when I did my first session, I'm like, give me some things to do. And I'm like, I want to do these things first before I come back to you. I want to at least put some things in place and show myself making the step and growing before I come back. I don't want to just keep coming to you and I'm not giving myself the opportunity to implement some of the strategies to be able to grow. So it was an eye-opener for me from a male perspective because as a man, we don't want we don't want the next man telling us nothing. And furthermore, we don't want no woman telling us nothing. In fact, we don't want nobody telling us nothing. And so we can tell ourselves what we want to tell ourselves. And so I had to be open for that. So that was good for me.
So how did you... And I know we're going to get part two to this. Yeah. Because we haven't even gone into the myths and all of that stuff. But how did you... First of all, did you grow? Because I don't know what you were told. You didn't share with me what happened in that session. And from then to now, did you see growth? Have you done the homework? I don't know. Tell me, because what should I be looking for?
Okay, what you mean you don't know? If you don't know, nobody else on planet Earth will know.
I don't know what your checklist was.
No, you don't need you trying to get into my checklist. That's not important for this conversation. What is important is, have you seen any growth in my behavior, my action?
I absolutely have.
Yeah?
I have.
What do you have seen?
And we talked about it, I think, in
the previous episode, right? I literally share my remote with you now.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a growth.
And you notice I keep saying my remote, right? Because it is literally my remote.
No, he's growing tremendously there. I must say, I still have my flashback moments when I remember, like, okay, this his remote, this our remote, this...
No, it was never no our remote, so let's get back to that.
Now it is, right?
Now it is, because I'm now open and I'm growing, and what it was is a bigger picture for me. It was not so much the remote, as we would have said before. It was the fact that I was being selfish. And I wasn't thinking that my actions was having an effect on you. So while I was controlling the remote, controlling the TV, I wasn't just controlling the remote and the TV. I was controlling what you watch. So every time you enter the room, every time we enter a space, is what I want to watch and not what you want to watch. And so that was the bigger picture for me, not so much the remote or the TV itself.
Yeah.
I recognized that I was forcing you to watch what I wanted to watch. Even though I had solutions for that, I still wasn't taking your aspect of it into consideration.
Okay.
It was just all about what I wanted to do. And when I didn't get my way, it's like my way or the highway. Yeah.
I think too, from that therapy session, it also brought out, and from what I've seen, because I don't know the checklist, I really want to know what the checklist is so I could, keep him graded and all of that stuff. But anyway, even outside of the remote situation, which I have seen growth, it's also, and we talked about it on the last episode, and I think that's why this topic was such a fitting topic for this episode. How you've changed in how you respond, because when and we talked about it in season 1, Mr. Impatient, he definitely is impatient, and so I've seen that as a growth. I've seen a growth edge there as well, where you've eased up a little bit. And would you say that was because you were faced with yourself in that session too?
Yes, it had a lot to do with that session. I was able to reflect on why I make the decisions that I make. I was able to reflect on how does it make you feel when I make certain decisions. And so the light bulb came on to me like, okay, you're not just controlling the remote, you're controlling what this adult watch. And so that. Yeah. And if we're on a team, and if we're supposed to be growing together, and as simple as that may be, I was able to empathize and put myself in your position to see what if it was the next way around, and you came in, and you, being petty, what you did, you were petty, and you cut off the Netflix so that you won't control. You won't control the TV.
Let me tell you.
No. You won't control the TV, sir.
The one petty move that I've done in 10 years.
Yeah, well,
you know that. Admit it.
No, that was the most drastic petty move. So because you couldn't control the TV and the remote, you cancel your subscription to Netflix. I was like,
I changed the password.
You changed the password. But I didn't.
I could have seen it. I could have still watched Netflix on my phone.
Okay, I didn't notice because I was fine watching the cable that I paid for, and so I was fine with that. So that didn't bother me, and that was the next level too, because then, before my level of growth, my pettiness would have kicked in. I'm like, okay, you want to cut off all that? Let me just switch off the light switch so you could be in the dark, like petty stuff like that. And the growth level says no. You know what? Just watch your cable or whatever it is, and eventually
Did you know? Or you just thought something was wrong?
No, at first I thought something was wrong, but when I went back in again, I noticed you changed the password.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, okay, fairness.
I felt good doing that.
And I said, in all fairness, I control the remote, I control the TV. That Netflix is literally your Netflix in terms of attached to your name. And so if you decide to do that, the difference between you and I is that I didn't get bent out of shape because of that, because I didn't feel entitled to the Netflix because it's in your name. You felt entitled to my TV and the remote.
It's no longer your TV.
No, that's how I was thinking at that point in time.
Okay.
You see, so I didn't feel entitled to anything, and so I'm like, I'm okay.
Yeah. So let's wrap this episode up, because
we have to continue this.
We definitely need to continue.
In the next episode, we'll talk about the myths and all that things around therapy.
But what would you say? Because one of the things that you said was significant for you after that season of us, talking, and we went to Harrison. You went to Harrison for a session. I went for a session, and then we did a joint session.
Yes.
And to me, it was transformative. Right? It really made a difference. And I said to you, thank you. Thank you for doing that, because I know not many men, again, in our culture. Now, I work internationally, therapy and having therapists, male or female, tend to be very normal. That's a normal thing.
Commonplace.
It's common. But from a Bahamian standpoint, I thought that was I felt a sense of gratitude. because I know women who would wish their husbands would at least hear some type of other perspective outside of their friends and all of that stuff. So my question or final point is, what would you say to men, who may need to go, they may not have an awareness that something is wrong, but they having some friction in their life, in some area of their life. What would you say?
If you find yourself in a situation where you are in a constant battle and the same things keep coming up over and over and over, you owe it to yourself to want to look at it from a different perspective. Because if you are handling it the same way all the time, or if you only keep hearing the same voices, it could possibly mean that you need to hear from a different voice, a more independent voice. And so for me, speaking to a therapist was an independent voice that doesn't know you personally, doesn't know me personally, doesn't know the situation, is not intimately involved in no way based on our relationship, and just to sit down and hear the views and to be able to not pick a side and be able to just say, could it be? Or Glenn, you ever thought about? Or could this be? Or where do you think that came from? And so it made me to think where some things came from. And it came from childhood. It came from your background. It came from what you saw your parents did. And sometimes they meant well, but well was not for you. You needed to create your own destiny, your own course. And I wanted to grow. I want to grow in our relationship. I want our relationship to work. I want to do better. I want to be better. And so I owed it to myself. And I remember what I said, I didn't go for you.
Yeah.
I went for me because I wanted to be better so I could be a better person in the relationship.
And I love that. You owe it to yourself if you want to grow, and if you want to grow boldly, especially this year. And that's our theme all this season. You owe it to yourself to take the brave step to get help, even if it feels scary, or it feels like stigma, or feels like, okay, this is something that's new to me. And we in the next episode, we're going to go to some of the myths, but you owe it to yourself to grow boldly in this area. And so, thank you. I love this episode.
Yeah, this brought out some truths.
Some truths. And so, Glenn and Giselle is not a perfect couple.
Oh, no.
No.
We have our challenges.
We are perfectly in love.
Yeah, but we try to deal with them.
We believe in growth, and
Yeah.
I think that's what people see. And I'm happy that we both are growth oriented, so we tackle things from a place of growth. And so that's what I love about our relationship. Yeah. So until next time, grow
boldly.
Bye.
Peace out.